Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the November Cypresswood Community Association meeting. Let's call the meeting to order and have our third Assistant Secretary to the Secretary take the role, Mr. Bill Shira. Thank you.
Hold it, okay. Club patio. Here. There we go. Cypress Pond.
Here.
Eagle Pond. Enclave.
Here.
Fairway patio.
Here.
Garden patio. Golf villas.
Here.
Greenfield Village.
Here.
Meadows. Here. Oh, don't laugh. I know it's funny. Don't laugh. Oak Grove.
Here.
Palmacia.
Here.
Plantation.
Here.
Sand Hill.
Not here.
Villas on the Green.
Here.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next slide, please, Savannah. I need a motion and approval for tonight's meeting agenda, please.
So moved.
Dr. Palmer has moved. Mrs. Goodrich has second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Also need a motion for approval for the October 18th minutes. Mr. Brent has made such a motion. Mr. Murphy has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We have one person on the resident comment. This is Mr. John Tasson. Mr. Tasson, please step up. You have 3 minutes. Savannah, declare, please.
Is this good, Savannah, where he's standing? Yeah, we look at me.
I wanted to bring to the attention of both the people listening here and at home a discussion that I had just the other day at one of our local stores. A lady was talking to another shopper saying what a wonderful security program we had here at Cypresswood, and that you didn't have to be afraid of anything if you lived here because the gates were guarded. And so when she finished that discussion, I asked her if I could have a moment to talk with her, that I was quite familiar with our security program here, and we have frequently published the fact that the people working at the gate are not considered to be security people. So she was quite surprised to hear that, and I told her, no, actually they're told to use their discretion about who comes in and who is allowed in. Back in June, as many of you will remember, we started a new program where we had signs put up saying that people in the visitors lane had to show either had to show a picture ID. The very first night that sign was up, someone after 10 o'clock at night, which was an old rule here, that if you came in after 10 o'clock, someone had to call the gate and announce that you were coming. No one called the gate for a person who came in after 10 o'clock. And when they came into visitors lane, they were asked to show their driver's license, and they said they didn't have one, and they were asked to then show a picture ID. They didn't have that either. So there was a little bit of discussion with that person and the person doing the guard work, the personnel there, and he uses discretion. He allowed the person to come in. That's been done more than once since, where we're allowing people controlling the gate to use their discretion to let people come into our community without a driver's license, at least none that they can show, and without a picture ID, at least none that they can show. That is disturbing to me and probably to a lot of the people, but I want everyone to know we do not consider the people working out there to be security guards. The sign that's up there that says that all people must show a picture ID is a rather unusual sign. I had ordered one because at that point when that sign was being ordered, I ordered one from a sign maker, and it said, if no decal, meaning the Cypresswood Community decal, if no decal, you must show a driver's license. The purpose of that sign was to make sure that people with decal were given time to drive through without showing their driver's license. The change there made it so that the people working at the guard shack at the gate had to ask everyone who was in the visitor's lane to show either a driver's license or a picture ID. The sign that I had ordered was $400 cheaper, or $400 to $500 cheaper than the one used. So we could have saved $500 and had a sign that said the correct thing. I'm sorry that that didn't happen. I was on the traffic control committee for a number of years, and I've been on and handled programs where we saved significant money other than the sign making. One final thing, if I could, Bob. We wonder where the money goes for the CCA, and you should understand that in the past 4 years, we've spent about $6 million. That's a lot of money, and the amount being spent each year is going to go up. So think of the things that we're trying to accomplish, but we've got to watch the pennies, and that's my message to everybody in the community. We really have to watch the pennies. $6 million is a lot of money to have already disposed of in the last 4 years.
Thank you. Next slide, please, Savannah. This is, oh, sorry, I'm still there. This side. Okay, keep going. Got one more. Landscape Committee, Mr. Wilson.
Thanks, Bob. We have all of the tree trimming is complete. The canopy from the very front all the way back through Oak Grove has been taken care of, and there was also a lot of work that was done here at the clubhouse. You also notice that the front sign, everything is complete up there right now, so that is a finished project at this point. There is one thing that we're watching, and it will be for traffic safety point of view. We're waiting to see where the stop bar comes for the traffic light that goes in there, because if you stop where the stop bar is right now on that sign and you look west or left, you cannot see any oncoming traffic. But of course you're waiting there at a light and you go when it's green. What we still want to look at is when the stop bar is established, we are seriously considering taking down all the bushes that are in the front of the sign right now and replace them with a very low growing bush, so that we have a good sight plane when you're the first one in line on the left turn to exit Cypresswood. And we'll look at that probably in December or January, because we'll know in the end of December or 1st of January where that's going to be. So our first concern, of course, is the safety of everyone who is leaving the community. We want to be sure that there's no sight lines blocked at that point. That's it, Bob. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to take a shot at it.
I have a question. Sorry, I don't know if you or Patrick. As I exited the other day, there was a car coming in the wrong way. Daylight, thankfully, but I wondered if when all of this was completed, would there be a do not enter sign on that side so that you know which side of the sign is supposed to be coming in?
Not landscapes, you may say. That is a road drainage, that's a road question, I believe, and I don't even know, I don't you can answer that when you give your report. That would be your vote. Just hang on to that just for a moment, please. Traffic control, next slide, please. Oh, sorry. Rick is not here. The only thing I will say, and it's kind of to dovetail on what Fred said, is that, let me get up in front, is that we had a meeting week before last with the project administrator for FDOT for that issue, as well as a couple others on Golf Hole 17 and the impact of the road moving next to the fence and the potential for the golf balls to enter that roadway, along with some other issues throughout that whole area that we had concerns with. So we're addressing, we're waiting for their response now. So we should have something. The road is scheduled to go to the other side, to our side, on or around Christmas. So they'll be driving on the south side of the road very soon. So they are trucking right along. It is still scheduled to be completed at the August of 23, though. The whole road is what my understanding is. Right? Yeah, somewhere in there.
They're ahead of schedule, I know that.
Right, they're plowing forward, no doubt about it, they're moving. Okay, next slide please, road and drainage, Mr. Shiro / third secretary in charge of whatever.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. There has been no activity during the last 30 days in road and drainage. Regarding the question that you had, we're waiting to see how they finish that whole entry area out there and where the final stop bar will be, but also how they're going to do the guide lanes on guiding people in and out. It is typical in an intersection like that there will be lane guidance that will guide people either coming from the Dundee area. Pretty easy, people coming from Winter Haven because they're right there, but it's the people that would be coming from the Dundee area we'd be most concerned about attempting to turn into our community in the wrong spot. But if that doesn't look like it's right, then we'll handle that with some level of signage in front of that area. And that's all there is.
Well, Bill, tell people what the website is so that they can go to it and see what, because it does give a pretty...
Yeah, it does. Okay. There is a website. I actually haven't gone to it because I get the emails from the DOT, but
right.
There's a website called 542 Design, SR 542 Design.org.
.com.
Is it .com? Yeah. And that is the website that has all the drawings there and all the information from FDOT with regard to the road project. I don't know, Rick's probably better at this than I am, but I watched the progress that they're making. You know, it's pretty easy to see on the surface how quickly they're getting some areas pulled together. We will be driving both directions in the same road lane, and it will be the new south lane that's being finished. They told us that we're going to be on that before Christmas, and I don't know where we'll merge back in when you're headed to Winter Haven, and I don't know that they'll have that part ready going over to Dundee. I don't know if there's going to be a swing around here or not. We'll see all that when it comes up. My first guess, though, on this project, even though it's scheduled to be concluded summer of '23, I know there's some pretty stout incentives out there to get it done quickly. I also know they're constantly looking for more help. It sounds like that we've never heard that before. But I still think with all the money on the table that's there, they're probably going to get this done a little bit before then. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
The problem that the lady mentioned, that might have been me she almost ran into. The problem coming from town, coming to here, was that those barrels on the road, if they had taken two of those away, so your normal turning radius would turn you into the right lane. And missed those barrels a few days ago. They were so far out, if you're just using your normal turn radius, you ended up in that other lane.
Yeah, they're moving those things. They're moving those things constantly. I had the same experience coming from Dundee, and we were coming, that was the day that we were coming in the outbound lane, and as I was turning, they moved the barrels. So I had to put on the brakes when they moved the barrels out of the progress.
It's the same thing that they say and they publish in the information that they send out. all this is a construction zone, and it's all changing all the time, and we've all got to be very careful about how we're driving around it. But once again, when it's all done, I think we're probably going to have something that's really going to showcase our community quite well. I certainly get, I'm all about marketing, and I get excited when I look at what we look like when you're coming in from Winter Haven and what that stretch is going to be like. I covet that billboard, there's no question.
Okay, next slide, please. The Treasurer's Advisory Committee, Mr. Tucker.
Okay, this is a recap of the report that you all received last week. Hopefully you read through it, and if you had some questions, you've already answered them probably, but I'll give you a recap. The operating cash end of the month, October 31, $142,000. Reserve cash, $315,000. Liabilities, only $12,000 in payables. How nice, but remember how big that number was last month. So we paid a lot of bills last month. The total notes payable to banks, $1,747,000, and total reserve accounts at the end of the month were $227,000. Unrestricted reserves are sitting at $168,000. As far as the income and expense report, all committees have done a really super job at staying on budget for the most part. Okay. Grounds is right on it, only $3,000 short of budget. Drainage, $24,000 under budget. Traffic control is $4,000 under budget. General administrative expenses, $3,400 under budget. And our funding of our recreation. Now, if you recall, you folks voted last month to make an adjustment to the long-term assets that were expensed through the amenities committee at $82,000. So that line item has been moved to stay on the plan. Okay, reserve accounts have been funded. So as far as financials, thank you. We are $46,400 in excess of our budget currently because of these unplanned expenses. Okay? Any questions, please? Thank you.
Got it. Well, you see that? I did. Pretty good half there. Not bad. Yeah, at least a half inch off the ground.
Yeah, well, I got to take care of it.
Next slide, please. Amenities Committee, Martha.
Thank you. Do you want to move to our next page?
slide, please.
This is where we are as of today, I believe. Debt service
End of October.
as of the end of October. Debt service, $152,000. Repair and maintenance, almost 60, not quite. Agronomics, $60,600. Utilities, $82,600. Insurance, $42,700. Pool and supplies, almost 13, not quite. Other amenities improvements, $745, and advertising, social media, ads, etc., $10,200. Okay, the amenities assessment for 2021 was $502,000.
And this is through the last meeting, I apologize.
Right.
October.
So yeah, so it really goes through October, correct?
And it goes through the last meeting.
through the last CCA meeting, would be 420,133.
125.
Yeah, unallocated funds, 76,800, and our operational support request for this meeting is 29,878.69.
Any questions? We need a motion, oh, go back.
Go back one.
On that.
Okay, we need a motion for, okay, you can have that, John, go
Motion
ahead.
to accept the committee's operation request for $29,878.69, please.
What's it for?
It's for the operation, turn, go back.
Go back one.
screen, please.
Is it blank
No,
check?
the other way. Keep going, other way. That one.
Okay,
It's for repair and maintenance, agronomics, utilities, insurance, to catch up.
Okay.
this is not an additional request, it's part of the 2021
Budget
committee's
request.
budget. There's no add-on here, it's
Okay.
part of what we already budgeted.
So moved.
Okay, second by Mr. Murphy. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, passes.
Okay.
Okay.
One other thing I want to say, and board members, please listen up. As we move into 2022, we are moving into our 5th year of our 5-year plan. Now, that's also the 5th year of our agreement with the leaseholder and the management company, and a number of issues in the lease become triggered then, and we will have to make some decisions. I want you to know that the amenities committee has already set up a subcommittee to look at the lease and a subcommittee to go out and make comparisons of management companies that at least are willing to come into this area in Polk County. We hope to be able to have a workshop for the board and the community at large in January. Now, it may be 2 workshops, and we may end up moving into February as new officers are elected. And everyone knows that in typically the first of the year, we have our annual meetings and we elect new officers. And not everyone gets them done in January. Sometimes we move into February. But my point is that the next board that sits here next year is going to be looking at some landmark decisions triggered by simply the 5th year. And for our part, we are going to try and present information related to amenities that will give you the information you need to make those decisions.
Okay, here's my part of the program. Golf course, these are golf rounds year to date as of the end of October. 21 was 31,000, 20 was 17. We almost discount that because we were closed for 5 months, and 29 was 26,800. So they continue in a good upward trend. Next slide, please. Currently, as of this morning, the superintendent and I rode around. 15 greens are in good shape. 3 greens are still lagging behind, but are progressing nicely. The greens are fertilized weekly. The greens will have herbicides applied on an as-needed basis. The greens are top dressed every 3 to 5 weeks. The greens will be vented once a month throughout the winter, and the greens are treated with an nematicide every 2 weeks. The tees. 2 out of the 90 tee stations are lagging behind, but are improving. All 90 tee stations have been successfully overseeded. We'll be mowing soon. Green surrounds and approaches. Both areas have been overseeded. Agronomic practices will begin after the new year. We have to let the seed establish before this can occur. Fairways. Fertilizing herbicide will be completed on an as-needed basis throughout the winter. A pre-emergent herbicide will be applied in early December. The roughs are 95% caught up. Remember, we had a brouhaha about the roughs not being able to maintain, and we said we'd be done by the end of November. We expect to be able to maintain them to golf course standards throughout the winter. And do you know, we do still maintain 140 acres inside the Cypresswood community. Of that, 80 acres is golf course playable areas. We still have no golf course mechanic, although we did have one apply this morning, or kind of apply.
He showed up.
Well, he hasn't showed up for his interview yet, so we're hopeful that he'll show up. We currently have a golf course maintenance staff of 7, including our certified golf course superintendent. That is down 2 from, down 2 from last month. 1 out with COVID, and 1 never came back. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Can we go back a couple slides?
Sure. To which one? That one?
Sure. You say 2 Ts out of the 90 are lagging behind. What's your definition of lagging behind?
That are not responding to the agronomics that we have put down for the last 90 days.
Okay, so they're not responding to the seeding you're putting down.
No, they're not responding. No, they'll all have overseed. We're pretty confident that we looked at them today, and almost every one of them has seed beginning to germinate. So we're hoping that's going to do it. It's the areas that did not fill in throughout the summer, basically. So we're going to cover that with overseed and then pump them hard with fertilizer in the summertime, because that's where we have to grow grass.
Okay, and there's nothing on here about sand traps. You guys went and put all that money into the sand trap.
We can add
and
that
they're
into
still
it.
crap.
I disagree with that. I think that the edging is a winter task. That is definitely a labor issue. Now that we're not mowing grass every day, that we'll have the two guys on the edging on a regular basis. Yes, sir.
We didn't have sand traps, what would it save us in maintenance?
Don't know that number. I know that somebody else asked me that. We're gonna find. If we didn't have any sand traps.
Well, I live about 3 miles from the old course, older than this one, and
They grassed them in.
they redid it, and they did away with the sand traps. Flight went up like crazy.
Yeah, no, I've heard that happen in some places. That's a possibility. I mean, obviously, I don't know. I don't know what the construction cost would be. You know, the long-term maintenance that would be less, I would assume. Yeah, you know, that would be an interesting call. Anything else? Okay. We're on to new business. This is the recommendation of the nominee for Mr. Klutner in here, and he asked Bill Shire to take his place for this wonderful task. Or read it off the big screen there.
I can read it. Oh, yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm not Mark Klutner. I've served as a nominated committee in past years. Mark Klutner volunteered to do it this year. Mark interviewed a number of people for all the roles that were up and to be looked at. Their credentials were evaluated, and the following is the slate that's being presented by the nominating committee. First, we have Ed Palmer as secretary. Ed has been the secretary for the past 2 years, two or 3 years. The treasurer's position, Scott Shira, a wonderful person. Terrible youngest brother I've ever had, but a wonderful guy. Scott's gotten very involved in this due to the fact that he, Robert Dodd, and Kevin Seward put together quite an effort to rip apart the books, to put together income and expense by operational entity so that we can look at these commingled businesses that we have and do a better job of evaluating them. With that knowledge and Scott's background and his education, he has accepted the role for next year as treasurer, should we choose to have him. Rick Reese, he's a good tall man for the job, and has done it the past couple of years. And Bob Shade, what more could we ask for? That is the slate being presented to the board. Do I do the motion?
What's your foot first?
Do I do the motion?
You're a president. You can change your hat.
So as a president, I put forth to this board this slate of officers for the coming year of 2022.
Do we have a second? Do we have any nominations from the floor? I deem the nominations closed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. Mr. Tom Barrett has some new business for the board you'd like to share?
I can go there.
Yes, you do. Just watch your step twice. Now get the.
First, I would like to say I like sand traps because it's the only shot in golf you don't have to hit the ball. I was just wondering something. I was sitting on my lanai about a week and a half or so back. I live about 100 yards from the 11th green, and I watched a guy playing golf, and his daughter was with him. And if she was 6 years old, she was old. And she was driving, which we see often. I mean, everybody sees it. The guy takes, I guess they got him for a weekend or something, and they take him golfing and let him drive the cart. And I know you're supposed to be 14 to drive a cart, but I watched them when they left. And they left to go to number 12. And they didn't just cross over, and the girl was still driving. She turned and went up the boulevard.
Not towards the traffic control center, the other way.
Right,
Okay.
right. So I was just wondering if that is any liability, if anything happens to the golf course, which is us, really, and how do you take care of that? Do you put a sign up and saying you can't drive the car unless you're 14, or you're responsible for anybody that gets hurt or killed or whatever? I don't know if that's a Bob question or a Christopher question or.
Yeah, I think I can answer that.
That's Sturge, bro.
When guests check in, they sign a document on a cart agreement that says that they have a valid driver's license or somebody has a valid, or they're 14 years of age. Ours is about driving it. The state of Florida says you have to be 14. Cypresswood says you have to be 16. If a parent chooses to let their child drive the golf cart, which happens all the time, we would have to have 18 rangers out because it happens all the time. As I'm looking at Linda because she calls me or texts me several times a month about the fishermen out on the golf course. It is a problem in our community, and it's not a problem. It's part of the beauty of Cypresswood. We struggle with enforcement with that because we don't really want to, have our fellow residents arrested, which is really our only recourse is to trespass them, and then if they do it again, have them arrested. Yes, it's a liability issue. That's exactly why we tell people in every newsletter article for the last 25 years not to do it. Our cart paths aren't the smoothest. They're out on number 5 taking a walk and they tripped in, they'll be out there all night until a motor runs them over. It's not funny, but it is, the people just don't get it. I tell the story all the time. I was playing 18, it's getting dark. All of a sudden, I'm in the middle of my swing, I hit my ball, and as my ball's soaring, this lady comes over the cart path out of that blind spot with a baby carriage. That golf ball hits that baby, the baby is dead. And everybody gets sued, as Mr. Lawyer will tell you, whether you get a judgment or not, doesn't it? So please, residents, please stay off the golf course. Only fee-paying golfers are allowed to be on the golf course. Please.
What about my question?
The question, yes, there's liability. If they take a golf cart up there and somebody hits it, everybody, the LLC will get, the LLC will get sued, and everywhere down the train. I'm sure, right, Mr. Attorney?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, the LLC will be the one that gets sued first, because the Cypresswood Community Association is a named insured on my liability policy. It's not going to stop if a kid gets killed from everybody getting sued. Yes, ma'am.
We still have the problem that this one gentleman thinks that the third hole is a dog park. And he takes his dog out there every night. And about 6:30, just before dark, throws this frisbee. And I don't know if it does its business on the course or not, but, you know, it's on the course, so I can't, you know, go out there and, you know, say anything, so.
And I think we have to decide as a community, what do we want to do with the violators? There was Friday afternoon, or Friday afternoon, we went out, somebody called about somebody on 5. We went out, I went all the way around the front 9, there were 27 people out there that shouldn't have been out there. How many are we going to have arrested? How many are we going to trespass? What do we want to do? Do we want to just let them have free run? Yes, sir.
Why can't we do what they do at Lake Ashton? Come up there, certain time of the day, they're allowed to walk the course.
When aren't golfers on the golf course? Or do we let them intermingle? I guess that's the question.
No.
So we have golfers on there from 5:30 in the morning until dark every day. So when, this time of year, and even in the summertime.
But if you let people go after the last people tee off, so many minutes, I mean, it's. Lake Ashton's figured out how it works.
Okay,
So there has to
well,
be a
I don't
way to
mind.
figure out how it works, and they have they make it work out there. And that
Okay.
way it will appease the people that are wanting to use it, as long as they follow the rules.
Yeah, that, more than we have summertime when there's more daylight on the back half of the day than now.
And at that point, you have a rule in place that they can use it, and, you know, at that point, I mean, if you want to, I think you're just opening up a big can of worms if you want to start trespassing 27 people.
I agree.
We're going to be spending a lot of money over there, and Chris is going to be pretty happy because he's going to get a lot of money.
No, Chris is not the LLC lawyer, but he does not want to do that anyway, I'm sure. Yeah, I'll call Lake Ashton and see how they do that. And how do they protect themselves?
I'm sure there's people that like to run the course or walk the course.
How does Lake Ashton pay for the damage that this group of people, probably 50 or 60 people, go on the golf course after the last guy plays? How do they reimburse the golf course for the damage?
Yeah, again, there's a lot of the ATV that drove over 7 Green Sunday morning at about 2:30 in the morning when I got the phone call.
They only let people, if I'm not mistaken, they only let people go out and walk the course.
Sure.
They don't let people drive their ATV out on the course.
Absolutely, I get your
Ride their
point.
bikes or anything like that. I mean, they have parameters on what they allow out there, what they don't allow out there.
We can certainly ask them.
Hey, Bob?
Yes, sir.
The age demographic at Lake Ashton is a little different than what we've come to be, which is a beautiful thing to have younger people with strollers rather than 55 and over. Isn't Lake Ashton 55 over?
Yes.
So that might play into it, Jason.
I think a bigger question the community should face in this meeting is what do we do under these golf cart drivers that are riding around the community, on the streets?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a bigger question. It's a much bigger pool of people doing that than it is on the golf course.
Are our sheriffs pulling them over when they see them, when they're here?
When they see them, they do.
Yeah, if they see them. But, they're here, usually later, but not always.
Has there ever been discussion about registering golf carts, like require them to have a sticker?
Right.
That would be from the individual HOA level, because that's where the enforcement would have to be if they don't. Because there's no mechanism for the Master Association to fine an Oak Grove resident if they didn't have the sticker. So it would have to come from Oak Grove and from Fairway Patio and from all the individual HOAs. And some of them have fining committees in place, Eagle Pond and Fairway Patio, I believe, right, Tom? Yes, sir. So you can impose that all your golf carts in your neighborhood registered. The question becomes if Tom's driver goes into Oak Grove and commits an Oak Grove violation, is that person violating a rule? I'm looking at my attorney here saying I don't know the answer. I have to be explored, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Right. Because they're all individual little kingdoms.
Yes.
So how's that different from vehicles then?
It is.
Somebody has to have a sticker, if you have.
They don't have to have a sticker.
Well, residents are encouraged to have a sticker, right?
We can encourage them, but how does that help though? How does that help the situation?
If they're registered and they have a sticker and you can stop them and actually see what the number is on the sticker, then you'd have some sort of recourse to look them up, wouldn't you?
But who on the community association level is gonna stop them? Who has that power right now? Nobody. Nobody has the enforcement power. Traffic control is at the gate. They can't stop. They don't have the enforcement to stop people coming to the community. They can turn them away, and if they don't, they can call the police for that, but they can't stop them. We want to look at security for Cypresswood. Big numbers. We looked at that in the past, 10, 15 years ago, we looked at that. It's all about what do you want to enforce, guys? That's different, but, we have a lot of youngsters in here that are driving, all over the place, through people's yards, door knocking and running off. I do encourage everybody, if that happens, call the police. That's what they've told us in these meetings. Call the police every single time. That's what they say.
We have delivery trucks driving through closed streets.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. Just heard that one the other day too. Yeah.
They just moved the post over there and, is that garden? I think that's garden patio. Because probably an Amazon driver or FedEx driver driving through
the cul-de-sac,
yeah,
right?
driving through the cul-de-sac. Yeah. They do it all the time on Pinehurst. They burn through the
Well, if an outside entity does, and you can identify the outside entity, at least you have some sort of recourse to another thing. It's a little bit different when, somebody's grandkid grabs a golf cart and drives through somebody's yard or whatever. But Tom, to answer your question, yes, if it's in one of our golf carts, the liability would first rest with the LLC, and then it would go from there.
Yeah, that's already back from us.
Yes, sir, Mr. Pratt.
I was amazed when we brought out the newsletters and stuff on Sunday. Probably half our people on our street have Ring doorbells. Now, I don't know about anybody else. My Ring doorbell shows everybody goes by. I can pull up I see when you go to work every morning.
Thanks.
Make
sure I go.
But at least I know you're okay. I'm just saying we do have resources about somebody driving around with a golf cart. We can pull those Ring doorbells.
And, okay, so you pull a Ring doorbell that shows a 6-year-old driving a golf cart, what do we do then?
Well, you gotta identify, at least you got something to say, this was the kid. If he does damage or whatever.
And Oak Grove would have to have a rule in place to deal with that. That's kind of the point.
10 years ago, I had to register with the traffic control.
Yeah, and then we were told, yes, you were encouraged to register.
My next door neighbor gave me that.
Yeah. I know. I remember.
Register our carts with the club too.
It's not an enforceable mechanism, unfortunately. All right, anything else? Yes, Mr. Potter?
I do got something. It's probably a little bit lighter and nicer.
Okay.
Guys, I don't know if we've ever even looked at bundling. Hold the mic up. Oh, ding dong. There we go. I was approached by one of my neighbors, and they were talking about bundling as far as like internet, TV, telephone services. I'm willing to get a presentation going, and I'm willing to actually have them come in and talk to all of us. But is that something we've looked at, number one? And number two, are you guys even interested? Are you guys interested in?
You mean have all of Cypress would be under one provider?
That's what I'm talking about. You guys want to have a discussion about it, or is this old news? That's all.
We in the Enclave, who provide a lot of services that other HOAs do not, have been approached by Frontier, Spectrum, and others. What we ran into, we've looked at it 2 or 3 times in the last, say, 4 or 5 years. What we ran into was our residents were not interested. They wanted to provide their own.
Okay.
Also, we have a number of units in every HOA that are rental units. And the owners that are renting typically do not in my area do not want to provide that. It didn't fly, and it was because our residents opposed it.
Is there any discussion?
Anybody else have any comments regarding that?
Okay. Just thought I'd bring it up.
Do it for yours, Steve.
Don't ever do that again. I won't do it.
Anything else?
Yes, you will.
That's my guy over there.
Couple of things. One, I want to thank Mr. Ben Tucker as his final day as treasurer. We appreciate your service as treasurer. Thank you. I'm sure we'll drag you back here at some point. And we typically do not meet in December unless there's a need to. The next meeting will be in January on the third Monday. Unless somebody has an objection. Yes, sir?
I don't have an objection. I just wanted to ask, when is this things with the changing or not changing management and so forth? When does that have to be done?
March 31st is my understanding. And the subcommittee is board. Kevin, I'm kind of looking, Mr. Stewart, I'm kind of looking at you just to make sure that we're expecting to be able to make a presentation on the bullet points of the lease in January, or they're right around that time period. Is that correct?
Our thinking is that we will have an amenities committee workshop, and the subcommittee is accumulating bullet points for the committee to consider for presentation to the board. It's possible, as Martha mentioned in her announcement, that we will have, that will be followed by a joint amenities and tax committee meeting, which may lead to a board workshop in January, but certainly by February. So we're actively working.
Yes.
Answer your question.
Mr. Tassin?
You asked the question, when does it have to be done? And then you said you thought March 31st. If nothing's done March 31st, you're done?
I didn't say
You're
that.
not done till December.
No, the initial 5-year contract ends December 3rd, but the decision on the operator is supposed to be made by March 31st. Is my understanding. I believe that, and Kevin's shaking his head, so I'm assuming that I am close.
That's the strictest sense of it, I mean, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, we need to make a good, thoughtful decision what happens going forward.
Our 5-year agreement with the leaseholder and with the management ends December 31st of 2022.
Correct.
But there are, if we want to make changes or if we want to renegotiate, those need to be done by the end of the first quarter in 2022.
Right, and everything's negotiable.
And that's why the amenities committee is going to meet yet again in December, and we're really looking at two different things. We're looking at the lease specifically, and then what kind of information we need to be ready to provide new officers, because we don't know who's going to be on this board come the end of February that might be voting. And we're going to be looking at the new 5-year plan for improvements. So we have a number of different issues that really affect the board. We hope to bring in workshop format in January.
Well, then if we had to do it by March 30th, what that means is that we would either have a transition period if there was going to be a change of 3/4 of a year, or if the person, in this case it's you, Bob, if you would look around and find something good that you'd have to take by July 1st, we'd be 6 months without anybody. Because you'd leave to go take your new job on July 1st, and we would have nobody then if we have to notify you by March 30th whether you're staying or not.
But
let's get the timeline set up by the subcommittee before we jump to timing conclusions, and we'll just have to, and we'll yeah. Anything else?
Move for adjournment.
Mr. Cramp has done that. We have a second by Mr. Murphy. We are adjourned. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas. Stay safe, everybody.
Oh, Bob, Christmas light parade, December 11th.
Christmas light parade, December